quite a few companies, and as I said, I love seeing that visionary integrator dynamic. Braden and Dave, you guys, there's a little bit of that dynamic as well there. We've got Michael and Chris, there's a little bit of a dynamic there, and also we'll get Daina and Jamie up as well, because when I've worked with them, it kind of gave me a little bit of a deeper understanding outside looking in what that visionary integrator relationship looked like. So I've asked them to come along, because normally I'd run this session with Melissa, but since she's not here, I wanted you to still see the way that dynamic works. So we might get you guys to come up the front. I made a few little notes and questions here. Maybe just as by way to start, maybe Jamie, if you want to just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your business, and yeah, maybe let's start there.
Sure, no worries. I'm Jamie Lingham. I run an immigration business, Absolute Immigration, upstairs from Gabrielle actually. And I've been doing it for 17 years. I got to a point last year, as Dave mentioned earlier, where I had the different agents, migration agents, go away. We used to have an agent who would work with an admin. The agent went on holidays. I sat in their position and did their role, and I thought, hang on a second, the way they're communicating is not the way I would have seen the business communicating. And then the next agent went away, a couple of weeks later, and I sat in their role, and it ended up I sat in all 5 agents, sort of what we call as pods, and I found everything was unbelievably different. I thought that, in my head, I thought everyone was on the same page and, doing things the same way. So we went through a whole branding exercise. I thought, I'm going to knock off the systems and processes in a month. I thought, yeah, January, that's me. I'm just going to sit down and I'm going to knock it off. 9 months later, I'm still going, right? And it is just this hell of a journey. It's, something you think is going to be easy, but it has been, it's been amazing.
What are some of your strengths as a business owner? Like, what are you really good at?
Good at relationships and selling and solving problems.
Yeah, perfect. And Daina, we'll get you to introduce yourself as well. What role do you fill at Absolute Immigrations, and tell us a little bit about you.
Hi everyone, my name's Daina. I joined Absolute Immigration just over a year ago as the operations manager. They did previously have an operations manager, but hadn't had it for a while. So sort of when I came into the company, it was almost a newly created position. And yes, for me, I suppose the challenges coming into, as Jamie said, was everyone was sort of doing their own thing, and I came from student accommodation, 50 odd properties across the country. So to get to that stage, everything was, system driven, everything had a policy, everything had a process. So to walk in and sort of not have that and have to start from scratch, it was like, okay, great, here we go again. I wish I'd just saved everything from the previous company and just, copy paste. So yeah, so that was one of the challenges for when I walked in.
What are your strengths? What are you really good at? And how would you complement what Jamie's good at?
I think making things happen. So Jamie will come up with 101 things like in a day. We need to do this, we need to do that, where's this? And so it's just a matter of sitting down and prioritising, okay, so what's important for the team, what's important for the business, and, make those things the priority. I remember, I think it was my first week there, he was like, right, we need a pulley system for outside the window. So with the bins, we can just pull them up and chuck our rubbish bin. And I was like, we can just walk down the stairs and put the bin, I was like, that's really not a priority. I've been here a week. It would be good.
That's awesome.
But he's just constantly coming up with things like that. And so it's just sticking to those processes. And I sort of second as Jamie's EA. So when he's doing the casework, many times he was like, right, can you just get this service agreement and invoice out to the client? I'm like, no, not my gig. There's a process. There's a person who does that. It's their responsibility.
Yeah, perfect. How did you find, Daina, like that particular role?
Yeah, I'd actually been through, I think, literally 12 PAs in about 3 years. And it was just, I went to a recruiter and I just said, I'm really doing poorly at this. And so the recruiter found me Daina, and it was someone I got on, who was actually a client as well, who I got on very well with. And I think she said to Daina, look out, this guy's totally mad. And so Daina just turned up for the interview to see what I was like. Actually, I don't think she was interested in the job.
No, I was just like, who is this madman?
So anyway, so just used a recruiter, got a 6-month guarantee and just said, give it a go. So
and did you recruit Daina for operations straight away, or did you come in as more your EA and then evolve into that role?
It's sort of, I think the position was meant to be EA and then build into ops manager role.
Yep.
But I think it was just based on the status of the business. It was like, right, just need you to sort of do both. So, you know, going into it, I knew what to expect, but at the same time, being new to the world of immigration, I really had no idea what to expect. So I think for the first sort of few weeks, I was just focusing on, you know, the EA stuff and trying to understand how, you know, where the business was and how things run. And then fortunately for me, I went to Europe for 5 weeks, 3 weeks after starting. And so then when I came back, it was more of the operational side of things.
Just before Jamie jumps in, because I know you were going to add something, one thing that I just noticed there, and it's a similarity with Melissa as well, maybe this is just a little bit of insight, the operations person, them not knowing how to deliver your products and services might actually be a good thing, because Melissa doesn't know SEO, she doesn't know video production. She came in approaching it more from how do we organise this, which actually played to her favour, because then she didn't slip into the role of doing the task and getting on the tools. So that was just something that popped up there, because it sounds like you didn't have experience with immigration, and that may have played to your strength. Like, you've obviously learnt a bit about it over time, but that enabled you to approach it with fresh eyes. How do we run this as an organised organisation, not let's run an immigration company?
Yeah, and I think you probably noticed that as time went on. So Dave spent a few months and still ongoing, really capturing all of our systems, and there were just a number. I was like, right, need to get someone else in because I have no idea how to do this.
Yep.
And then by the end, I was just like, not really my job, but I know how to do this, so let's sort of just smash it out. So
Yes, yeah.
I think it definitely does help in some aspects, but at the same time, there's other people within the company. So you don't necessarily need to know the ins and outs of it. It's just utilising those people that do.
Felt like you were going to jump in and say something before.
I was just going to say, and that's one thing with Daina's personality as well, that, you know, she came into an environment, obviously had no experience, but also could see the problems and would naturally step in to do it. And so then that's where, you know, the sort of trust starts to build in our relationship, where she would go, okay, this is not working so well, and I'd be like, what's got to happen? She'd just say, I'm onto it, and, you know, she'd just take control. And so that allowed me to relax and not worry so much about trying to manage every single part of the business, and that's what was the significant, you know, difference with Daina compared to other people I'd worked with.
Probably to that point as well, what do you think some of Daina's strongest characteristics are, or that makes her well suited to this role?
Yeah, look, I think, you know, she's very practical. She's tough as nails. I mean, you know, a lot of the staffing stuff that she does that I used to do, I don't know about you guys, but as a business owner, sometimes you get a bit emotional when you sort of, you know, you're disciplining staff. It could go a bit too, not, you know, too far, but as in, you know, you do take it personally, I think, when things aren't getting done the way you want it to be done. And so the classic example of that is when I sat in with the 5 people, I was like, bloody hell, whose business am I in? And that was a real wake-up call. But Daina's very level-headed, and she's, as I said, she's practical, and she just gets things done. She keeps... she's very focused, keeps me focused, and the same sort of thing, like with the bin ideas, and if I come up with stupid things like that, she's just like, come on, Jamie, go back to your work.
What are some of, I don't know if you've got an example, the bin is a good one. Are there any other, you've probably got a whole bunch of them, do you have any other times where you might have had challenges or you've had to push back on Jamie on certain things, and how did you handle that, him being the business owner? How did you approach that?
Yeah, so I think one of them was a staffing issue, and he was, the person just wasn't performing. But the person had been there, I don't know, a good sort of maybe 2 years or at least a year and a half, and there was just nothing documented. So no regular reviews, no, you know, sort of documentation of what training has been provided or, you know, what issues that person had. And he was just like, get rid of them. You know, just get rid of them. They're not helping my business. They're making too many errors. You know, clients were complaining, etc. And I was like, well, no, we need to go through a process. In my previous role, I worked in HR, so I've got that experience of, you know, what's required and performance managing, and, you know, providing the relevant training and timeframes for them to improve, etc. So he was like, right, you just sort of manage it. If I wasn't there, he would have potentially just sacked it.
As we talk about this, and you've thought about what we've just gone through, now mindful that Daina and Jamie haven't sat through any of the other sessions that we've seen up till now. They probably only caught the tail end of what we talked about. But can you see that dynamic that I'm talking about? Like, it's very clear and distinct how they complement each other. With that in mind, like when you're thinking about your role, Jamie, what is the where do you think you add the most value to the business? You probably mentioned relationships and stuff like that. Is that kind of where your sweet spot is, or what?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, when I was recruiting for Daina, I just said, I just need someone who can look after my back end and being the admin side of things. And, because I'll go into meetings and I'm like, yeah, great, we can do this, and I'll promise you that, and I'll do all these things, and I'll sort of walk away and I'll go into the next meeting and be like, yeah, we're going to, do exactly the same thing again. I'll promise 10 different things. And, just to have someone there who can say, okay, well, no, I've booked time in your diary to do it. And so when we finish a meeting, I call Daina. Daina says, okay, what was the meeting about? What were the action points? What did you promise? And then she'll schedule that into my diary. Seriously.
Constantly over-promising.
And she'll schedule that into my diary, next week. She'll say, when did you promise it by? So I say, I promise by Friday, close the business. And she'll go, okay, so she'll put something in my diary for Wednesday, block out the time, and hopefully I can focus long enough to get it out.
When it came to booking today, I didn't actually make this appointment through Jamie. I worked with Daina to get it on the calendar and make sure it was all going to happen. And I think Daina checked in with Gillian today, just say, yeah, we're all on track. So
before we were about to leave, I was like, right, so do you know what we're doing? He was like, no. I was like, right, I've got a sheet. I'll show you in the car.
So the classic example is Daina's got the sheet because obviously Dave is so bloody organised. We had the questions and preempted. Anyway, so typically Daina's filled out all her answers, and I was actually quite surprised to see she didn't fill out my answers as well.
I did think about it. I just know you're more of a freestyle guy.
But as the visionary, you work best on your feet and coming up with this stuff, which is great to see.
Absolutely. Can I just say one thing as well?
Please.
Now I know that I've got the systems in place, it actually gives me more freedom to stray further from the nest, to know that things are actually being done. Whereas before I'd be like, oh, is that being done? I'm not sure, or something's gone wrong here. I'd constantly be coming back into the business. Yeah. But now actually having that stability and that understanding that it's all okay and it's in hand, and if there is a problem, then we'll come up with another process to meet that. It actually gives me more confidence to sell to clients, to come back and say, hey, we can take on massive volumes, or we can do everything you need, and have the confidence all being handled back in house, and that's a huge difference.
That insight right there, that's that counterintuitive thing that I was talking about.
That's the money shot.
Systems do not remove creativity. Depending on the team member, it creates that space for him to be able to now see things that before I was the same. Like, I'd be looking over my shoulder seeing what's happening with Melbourne SEO, and it didn't give me any chance to focus on the System Hub side of things. But once we got really comfortable with what Melissa's doing, I'll go away for like 3 months and then I'll turn back around and go, what's going on here?
Sorry, just to interrupt. But also on that, what it's enabled me to do is to say, okay, there's all these projects I've got on the go, like bringing the bins up on pulleys. But, all these different types of things that I can actually go, well, now I have the systems in place, I don't have to worry about that. And it's not just about taking time off, it's actually starting to put my time, effort and energy into the projects that I'm really passionate about and want to do.
And I find that with most business owners, when we first started talking about systems and processes, I used to say this idea that, I was selling the idea of get systems and processes in place, and then you can go lie on a beach somewhere and kick back. But the more I've started to work with business owners, they usually don't really want that. They really just want the freedom from the day-to-day operations so they can then focus. They love business. They love doing things. So you just want to make sure that they're working on things that really fulfill them, their unique ability, and gets the most out of them. 2 last ones that I had. One for you, Daina, was thinking, is there anything that you wish you knew about this role before you started? Now that you're kind of in and you've been working with Jamie for a while now, is there anything that if you knew up front that might have helped you be even more successful in the role?
About the role or about Jamie?
Let's do Jamie. You
That'll
decide.
be more fun.
Stick to the role.
I think just knowing where sort of the business was. So I sort of walked in and it was like, oh yeah, we've got policies on this and we've got policies on that. And it was, environmental policies or, discrimination sort of stuff that was a couple of years old. So it wasn't really any processes in place of this is how you do that. And so working with you over the past 9 months, we now have that. So when we've got, a new starter, we can literally say, hey, sit down and watch this video. And even going forward with the training rather than just, one of the migration agents providing the admin team training on, a new process, it's like, right, let's record it, let's document the process so we don't have to do this again.
Yeah.
And so I think just having a better understanding of where the position was in terms of a process sort of. Yeah,
it's funny, you look from the outside in and you look at a business and go, oh wow, that's doing really well, and then you get in, you look behind the curtains and you realise really what's going on behind the scenes. That happens all too often. The final question then for you, Jamie, as well, thinking about like where can you imagine the business going, like in the next sort of 5 years, 10 years?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
What
and so
towards?
where we want to take our business is just sort of change the way that everyone works. So in the immigration space, I could be sitting on a beach in Mexico and still, you know, having chats with people and still giving advice. And so that's where I sort of see it going. I don't think that we're all going to be sitting in one office, you know, working, going to our designated box every day and travelling there and sitting with people who we sort of, you know, share a common interest through work but not really want to hang out with. I'd prefer to have a situation where everyone who works with us, they can go off and you know, spend more time with their family and just work in a different way using, you know, a platform and having all systems and processes provided.